beautiful wing loop dragons. So today we are gonna bake some banana bread. And when you bake things, you have to use fractions. So a whole would be like 1 whole cup. And then in baking, you use parts that are divided up. So we'll use 1 whole, 1/2, 1/3, and 1/4 as we're baking today. The first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to mash up some bananas, 2 ripe bananas. You can tell a banana is ripe when it is yellow and has brown spots or streaks on it. That tells you that the banana is ripe and will be sweet for your banana bread. You can take a fork and you just keep poking it with it until it becomes into smaller bits. So your bananas, after mashing and poking for a little while, they should look something like this. Now that we finished mashing the bananas, we're gonna add a couple extra things in here. We're gonna add a dash of cinnamon, which is really just a couple sprinkles. You can decide whether or not you want to add it. You don't have to. You just cover kind of the top of the bananas. We're gonna add 2 tablespoons of milk in. Okay. And then we're also going to add our butter. We're going to need a 1/3 cup of butter to melt. There's a line right here that shows that that's a 1/3. You want to line up your butter knife and cut through the paper. So that way you have exactly 1/3. Then we're going to melt the butter. Normally when you bake things, you want to mix all the wet ingredients together first and then all the dry ingredients. Now we're gonna do our dry ingredients. We're gonna put in flour, 1.5 cups of flour. So remember earlier we talked about our fractions. This is one of the parts where we'll need to use our knowledge of fractions. So 1 whole cup of flour and 1/2 a cup of flour. So here we go. It's really important when you measure flour that you want to make sure it's even in the cup. So as you can tell, there's kind of a little hill on my cup, and I'm just gonna take a butter knife and kind of scrape the top, gently pushing the extra flour over back into the container. So that's right here, 1/2 a cup of flour. I'm gonna do the same thing now with a whole cup of flour. And that's 1 whole cup of flour I'll put into my bowl. Great. The next dry ingredient that we're gonna need is baking soda. Baking soda, we're gonna do 1 teaspoon. So that's 1 whole teaspoon. I don't have a whole teaspoon, so what I'm gonna do is use 1/4 of a teaspoon, and I'm just gonna do 4 of them, right? So if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, that would make 1 whole teaspoon. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can use a whisk or a spoon, anything works. Just gotta mix it together, and then we're gonna add a pinch of salt. So a pinch is where you pour some salt into your hand, like that, and you pinch the salt between your fingers, and you're gonna sprinkle it in. The extra salt you don't put in. You can just put that in the sink. Otherwise, it will be too salty. So those are our dry ingredients. We're gonna do, again, now some more wet ingredients, which is the sugar and the eggs. So 1/2 a cup of sugar, 1 large egg. So the way that you can crack an egg is you want to crack it actually on a flat surface, not on an edge. And you just go a really firm tap, put your fingers in between, and then it should break in. If you see any shells, you can just pick them out with your fingers. So now you're going to mix the egg and sugar together. This is called creaming the sugar. So it should look something like this, where it's nice and yellow, it's thick, and everything is mixed together. You can't tell that there's a separate egg or sugar. So we are gonna add in a teaspoon of vanilla, a whole teaspoon. Again, I don't have a whole teaspoon, so I'm gonna use this half teaspoon. Remember, 2 halves is gonna make 1 whole. So 2 halves of a teaspoon is gonna make 1 whole teaspoon of vanilla for me. 1 half, 2 halves, make a whole. Then I'm just gonna gently mix that in. We're gonna put all our wet ingredients together into one bowl. Mix it up just a little. It's all together. And I'm gonna mix in my flour, baking soda, and salt. I am not gonna pour the whole thing in. I'm gonna do about 1/3 of the flour. And I'm gonna mix it gently in. So to make sure our banana bread doesn't stick to our pan, I just put a little bit of oil. I'm gonna use my spatula, get it up in the sides, corners, make sure it's all greased. So now we're gonna pour our batter in. It'd be great if you used a spatula, which is what I'm using. If you don't have one, that's okay. And then just to make sure it's even, you can just give it a little shake. Now we're gonna put in our banana bread into the oven. I've already preheated it to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So make sure the oven's hot and ready. Then we'll put our banana bread in. Try to go for the middle of the oven. We are gonna set a timer for about 50 minutes. And then we'll come back and check after 50 minutes to see how it's doing. So it's been 50 minutes and we're gonna check on our banana bread. Remember to use gloves. It's very hot, so it has a nice brown color, golden. The way you check if something is baked is you poke it with a toothpick, and if you pull it out and there's nothing sticky on it, then it's done. Remember, the pan is very hot, so be very careful. When you bake, it's really important to ask an adult to help you, especially when taking things out of the oven. Now you can enjoy your banana bread. See you next time.